Hi everyone, welcome back to the Temple Street High Performance Reflections. This week's guest is Mike Roddock, who is the Development Director at Ospreys Rugby Union Club. Known for his contributions and achievements as a professional rugby player and coach, Mike has held playing and coaching roles in Ireland, England and Wales. As a coach of Swansea, Mike and his team recorded a 21-6 win over the travelling Australians in '92, while also achieving Welsh League and Cup successes in '92, '94 and '95. In 1997, Mike moved to Ireland to take up the role of Director of Coaching at Leinster. In 2004, Mike was named head coach of the Welsh National Rugby Union team, following coaching spells with the Welsh A's and the Newport Gwent Dragons. In his first season as head coach, Mike led Wales to a Grand Slam and Six Nations Championship for the first time since 1978, and was recognised for his contributions to Welsh rugby when accepting an OBE from Queen Elizabeth in 2006. Following a spell as Director of Rugby with the Worcester Warriors, Mike was appointed head coach of the Ireland under-20s rugby union team in 2010. Acting as head coach for 4 seasons, Mike led the under-20s to a 4th place finish in the 2014 Junior World Cup, while also overseeing the emergence of the likes of Tadhg Furlong and Garry Ringrose, among many others. Following a long and successful stint with Lansdowne Rugby Club, where he led the senior team to a hat-trick of All-Ireland League titles and an All-Ireland Cup, Mike has recently been appointed as the Director of Performance at the Ospreys. So with that, I'm delighted to welcome you all to Mike Roddock. Mike, how are you?
Yeah, good, Peter.
Thanks a million for coming. Thanks a million for coming on board today, Mike.
Yeah, delighted to assist in any way I can, and obviously to support Temple Street in any way I can. So, yeah, looking forward to the questions, Peter.
Great, thanks a million. So, what we'll do, sir, is we might jump straight into them. So, if that's okay with you.
Can I phone a friend?
Depends who it is. Yeah, absolutely. We could do whatever you want today, as long as you give me something that I learn. So that's the main thing.
No worries. Try our best.
Great. We'll fire away. So the first question I have for you, Mike, is I suppose in terms of your world, what does high performance look like for you?
Yeah, well, the first thing I'd say about high performance, Peter, is it's very complex. It's multi-layered. There's a sort of an intrinsic element, for you to try and be the best version of yourself, to have a growth mindset, if you like, and to keep trying to get better and better every day. And then there's the sort of extrinsic elements to it, the support systems, the coaching, the facilities, the program that you're on, all those sort of things help to drive high performance. And in rugby, I tend to break it down into 4 pillars, 4 distinct pillars. And the first one that, to me helps to support the house, the high performance house, if you like, is, and the high performance effort is exactly that, is the physical pillar, the effort that goes into the training program from the individual involved. Whenever I take over a team, for example, Lansdowne, I said to them the first thing I was going to give them was a supplement, BHW, which stood for bloody hard work, because without the effort, then really the rest of the support systems count for nothing. So, for example, I think Michael Jordan, I watched recently in his series on Netflix, he said, it all starts with hard work and ends with champagne. And if you ask any Olympian when they stand on the podium, or any winning team, when the captain's interviewed at the end of the match, and they say, well, how did you come to win this cup? How did you come to be champions? How did you come to be the Olympic gold medalist? And they all say, well, it's because of the effort I've put in. Without the effort, the house, that particular corner of the house is going to fall down. So that's the first pillar, I think, in high performance, is making sure that you've got effort from the people involved, and particularly the athlete or the person striving in the team to deliver high performance. And then the second pillar that I think is massively important and aligns alongside the physical side is the mental pillar, the mental side of things. So, the motivations, why am I doing what I'm doing? What is my goal? And making sure that that's clearly defined, have that goal clearly defined in your head, so that you're motivated to achieve that goal, developing your SMART goal, if you like, so they're specific, measurable, achievable, recordable, realistic and time framed. Those SMART goals are really important to you. Muhammad Ali, I think he once said that the fight is not won in the ring itself, is won in the gym leading up to the big fight itself. So, the motivation to put that work in, to put that effort in, is really important. And do you know what? There's going to be times when it's going to be a little bit tough along the way. There's going to be a struggle. There's going to be a few obstacles. There's going to be a few bumps in the road. So it's having that mental determination, that motivation, that clarity around your goals to achieve those goals that keeps you on track even when you hit a few tough times. And then the other aspect of the mental side, I think, is always great when you've got a cause to fight for. That Swansea side you talk about when we beat the world champions in '92. In '91, I took over as coach at Swansea, and they hadn't beaten Llanelli, our local rivals, for 11 matches. And they were finished last but one in the first season of Welsh leagues. And there was a newspaper article calling the team superflops. So I pinned it up on the notice board and I said, guys, inside the room, everyone here knows we've got a really good team and that we can be challenging for the championship. On the outside, everyone thinks that, we've got all these international players and we're not performing to the level we should be. And the headline there says it all. We superflop. So I'll take that headline down. I'll take that newspaper cutting down when we beat Llanelli. And we beat them that season and went on to win the league. And just a year later, we beat the world champions. So we had a goal, which was to improve our performances, but we also had a cause, because that really binds you then. That's like a glue that brings you together. And our cause was to prove the external sort of doubters wrong, that this team was no longer going to be a flop team. It was going to be a high performance team. So that the goals underpin the cause. If you can get a cause on top of that, it's a really powerful thing. So, for example, with the Welsh team, we won those couple of games early in the championship, and suddenly there was a cause. So we were achieving our goals of a more consistent performance, but suddenly we had a cause. Could we achieve the first Grand Slam in 27 years? It really motivated the team even a little bit more than already was happening. So the high performance side of it can be kicked on even greater if you've got a cause to fight for. And one last example, I coached the Dragons in 2004, and our performances in the Dragons helped me to get the Welsh job, because we were the worst sort of rated squad. In fact, so much so that very similarly, the newspapers were calling us the reject team. And my team was full of rejects because we didn't have all the star-studded international players. Our budget was lower. But I picked a team that was mostly composed of the Wales A type players, just below the international players. I knew they were very good players. I coached the Wales A team. And we stuck together, and suddenly, again, we had a cause to fight for. Again, it was an easy team talk for me, guys. Inside the room, I know we were all really good players. I worked with you with the Wales A team. We're going to go out, we're going to perform really well, we're going to have a great season. But on the outside, everyone's calling you the rejects. Let's go and prove them wrong. So suddenly, on top of our goals, on top of our physical pillar and our mental pillar, we now had a cause. And that's a really strong thing, So our physical work was being done, our physical pillar, we're achieving our targets there. Our mental pillar, we had loads of guys who wanted to kick on and get better every day. They want to achieve their goals, but they had a cause, a really strong cause to fight for as well. So I think if you find those two pillars, you're really going to kick on. And then the other two pillars I talk about are the sort of hardware. The hardware that goes alongside the mental and the physical. And that's the hardware as in the support systems that, ideally if you can get those bang on, then that's going to be a really strong pillar for you. Things like really good training program, really good coaching, some great facilities to train out of. And when I say great facilities, they don't have to be the best cosmetically, but they have to be functional. There was a famous Welsh boxer called Joe Calzaghe. I think he was undefeated and never lost a fight, and he trained out of the worst gym you've ever seen. His dad was his trainer. When he looked at it cosmetically, he was a wooden shack behind a little rugby club in Wales. And you can imagine all these other great fighters had state-of-the-art setups. But inside the gym, it was functional. He had everything he needed. He had all the equipment he needed. He had really good coaching, a great relationship, a great culture. And those support systems were there for him. So, and again, going back to my time with the Dragons, everyone was, the Ospreys had just built a new stadium, the Liberty Stadium. Cardiff Rugby Club were playing out of Cardiff Arms Park next to the Principality Stadium. The Clethley team, Scarlets, had just built a new stadium. And we had a sort of 120-year-old facility. But, we sort of developed a bit of a cause about that, that we had a little bit of a chip on our shoulder that we, people didn't want to come to that sort of less fashionable place, but for us it was home. So the hard way is really important. Performance analysis, the gym, the training program, those, if you want high performance outcome, you need to have those things in place. But I guess cosmetically, they don't always have to be the absolute best, as long as they're very, very functional and get the results. So that's your third pillar. And then your fourth pillar is your culture. I think if you can get cohesion and tightness and togetherness, I always talk about the open hand, fingers pointing in different directions possibly. Whereas if you can get that tight fist, it's a more powerful feeling to it, and more powerful sort of weapon. So if you look at, say, an example I thought of to talk to you today about was the 2005 Lions team. Clive Woodward Clive Woodward just won the World Cup with England. They were really tight. They'd been together for a long time, a lot of stability around the team, real tight-knit group. He took on the Lions because his record was fantastic, and he deserved that chance at the Lions. And he sort of took an extra amount of players, and he sort of split the team into a midweek team and the Saturday team. He brought in an extra set of coaches. They were flying to different venues where they sort of travelled on the bus before to get better recoveries. From a sports science point of view, the pillars were fantastic. But straight away, they became a split in the camp. There was the midweek team and the Saturday team. Midweek coaches, Saturday coaches. So you had that approach rather than that approach. And the culture really, the cohesion, didn't quite knit as well as he wanted, and perhaps that reflected in the results. And just one last point on the cohesion, Peter, as you know from your own experiences in sports coaching, there's two elements to cohesion. The first one is task cohesion, where everyone's focused on the task and achieving the task. And it's the same in the workplace. You could have great offices where people are really delivering on the outputs, but there's a second element, and that's social cohesion. So if you get what you call team spirit, where people enjoy each other's company, they want to spend time with each other, they want to fight for each other. When you've got two teams, for example, that are playing against each other, very well coached, mentally the pillars are strong, they want to improve. Physically, the pillars are strong, they're great athletes. The third pillar, the support systems are fantastic, the training program, all the operations there. So you come down to culture then, and that sense of togetherness. And if you've got that team spirit, both sides are going at each other. There's 5 minutes to go. Who's going to come out on top? The team that's tightest together will do that. I knew that would happen, Peter. 1 second. On my phone.
Okay, no problem at all, Mike.
Could be my son Reese right there.
Very good. No problem. So I think the points you touched on there, like, I suppose it's great to hear such a structured kind of pillar approach, and something that sits with me as well. A lot of our guests have talked about is that why piece, or that purpose piece, and why we're doing what we're doing, and how powerful that can be. But I suppose that probably brings us nicely to our next question, in terms of, you've talked a lot about kind of how you go about, what the factors might be in terms of high performance. But I'm curious to know, having all these factors and having all this structure is fantastic. But how do you go about effectively implementing the structures and factors of high performance?
Well, I think a lot of that is about self-awareness as well, and understanding your values and belief. So, for example, if, I walked into the Ospreys back in December last, the Ospreys had only won one game all season. There are a lot of injuries, in fairness to them. There'd been a lot of turnover in coaches. The club had let coaches go. There was a lack of stability. I walked in and it was very obvious that there was a very difficult sort of mood in the camp, So before you could think about putting in, checking out all the high performance structures, I thought it was really important to talk to people, get that level of engagement, to find out some of the things that were going on that were good in the camp and weren't so good in the camp, and the barriers, if you like, to us implementing a high performance program. Because it's one thing for me to come in and just put my beliefs in place. Everything needed to be aligned if we were going to get total buy-in, particularly where we were. So what I did, Peter, I set up a number of meetings with a group that I call the helmsman group, because the helmsman steer the ship. And so I got the directors of the club involved, with the heads of department from the business side of the club, the heads of department from the rugby side. For example, head of conditioning, head of medical, head of performance analysis, the coaches. And I got a cross-section of players, some senior players, some younger players. And we sat in a room and basically we answered 2 questions over the course of a number of meetings. And we tried to find solutions for those, the answers that we give, if you like. And the first question was, look, what are we good at? Because very often, Peter, when you're in a bad place and you're not doing so well, everyone focuses on the glass half empty. This is wrong, that's wrong, this is wrong. And you forget, actually, there's a lot of good things going on that you should be patting yourself on the back about and priding yourself and say, look, we need to maintain those. So our first question is, what are we good at? What do we need to maintain? And, when we debated that, it became obvious that we'd been Wales' most successful region. So we knew how to achieve. We knew how to put the hard work in. We knew the mental motivations that were involved. We knew we could develop a good culture. Historically, that was there. The outcomes, were obvious. The evidence was there. So straight away, we focused on that, because that gave us really positive affirmations that we could do this. And, there was a structure to that. And then we looked then at what we needed to work on. And basically out of that, and we had different groups. And then when we pulled our ideas, all the groups pretty much said the same thing. And the 3 things that came up. So, and I think this is really important for anybody looking to develop high performance. The first thing that we felt we really need to work on was our communication through the organisation. Things were being released to the press before the players knew about them, for example. Simple things, really, like new signings or someone leaving the organisation. The players got to read about it at the same time. So obviously that was a tricky one there. And then the other one we need to work on was trust. So obviously the communication and trust, if you're not communicating, it can lead to a lack of trust, if you like, in some of the decisions that are made. And the third one was unity. So going back to the cohesion piece, we knew we were very successful in the past. We knew we could build a high performance team, but our engagement wasn't as good as it should have been. Our communication, our trust, and our unity. So we talked then about solutions that could put those into place. Simple things like meetings to tell players that we've signed a new player, or that emails to back that up then. So there would be an email go out to all the staff and players to say, hey, by the way, we've signed this player. If he was signed in a certain position, I would get the other athletes in the same position and speak to them personally and say, just so you know, we've signed a new player in your position and these are the reasons why. And it could be to cover an injury to a couple of those guys, whatever the reason was, they knew it from me or from the coach before they read it in the paper. So the communication improved, the trust improved, the unity improved. Simple things like that. So then on the back of that, you can put in your 4 pillars, Peter.
Yeah, absolutely. And I very interesting to hear that aspect of the implementation piece in terms of, it's one thing having all the structures and processes, but it's another thing how you go about implementing them. And obviously communication and a level of trust has to be, paramount in terms of people's engagement and their willingness to make a change or buy into something that you're selling. So it's great to hear that.
100%, because Peter, from your own experience, we all make assumptions sometimes. You assume that because the board have made a decision, or the chief executive, or the head coach, or the performance director's made a decision, we assume that everyone should just buy into it. And sometimes people need to know a little bit more about it, ask a few questions. They might not agree with everything that you do, but at least the engagement piece is there. The narrative supports the decision making, and people get an idea of your mindset and what you're doing, and it just brings people together. And I think it's it's something that perhaps can be underestimated, that communication piece, if you like. And I think that if you can get that support in the the 4 pillars I talked about as part of your culture in particular, then it's a very strong glue that can help to bind people.
Yeah, absolutely. So that brings us nicely then onto our next one, Mike, and it's something I'm very curious about in terms of yourself. So all the roles that you have held, or if not all, most of the roles from my perspective have been, require a lot of trust and respect, and obviously, maybe there's a kind of an onus on you to be true to yourself and have the right structures and systems in place. But in terms of yourself personally, and on your growth and learning journey, how important has reflection been to you?
Yeah, it's been very, very important, in a positive way, but also in a negative way. I try to sort of give you an idea on that. I think, after every training session, you reflect on whether you got the message over, whether you helped to improve players, whether you making progress, whether you're on track, your own performance, the team's performance, individual's performance. You might go away, cross-reference that with your video sort of aspects of the training, etc., etc. Back in the early days when I was coaching, we didn't have that sort of video feed sort of resource to go back and check things. So you had to develop a very strong reflective practice really to sort of think about those things. Again, the same with the team performance back in the early days. There was very little chance to intervene in the way you have with radios to get messages on the half time. The athletes come in now. Back in the olden days, they'd stay out for 5-minute break on the field and then play the second half. So you've got more chances, if you like, to be reflective in the game and to try and get your interventions in the game in the way these days. In the old days, it would be just reflecting on the performance as a total block, and then trying to feed that back to the athletes on the training night on the Tuesday night, for example. Now it can be almost immediately, particularly with things like GPS, monitors on players and all those sort of things. So I think the reflective side, are you, there's the technical aspects, there's the mental aspects, there's the game plan, the vision piece. Are you able to communicate that vision? You reflect on whether everything's aligned with your vision and your values and beliefs really. So that's a constant thing. That's ongoing all the time, really. And it's something that you sort of wrestle with because sometimes you just want to take a break from it. As a coach, you want to sit down and watch TV and forget about coaching, but it's always on your mind, reflecting. So that takes me into that negative aspect. And I think that, over the years, I've probably been too hard on myself as well. And the downside of reflecting is I could have done this better and I could have done that better and I should have done this better. And you end up beating yourself up a lot, and if you lose the game, you reflect and perhaps go looking for things sometimes, and you think, oh, I know what I did wrong. I didn't quite nail the warm up, or I didn't quite nail the one of the technical aspects midweek. Well, ultimately, one lad might have missed a kick, a goal to win the game, or missed a tackle, and it's an individual error. But as a coach, I've always taken it very, very sort of hard on myself, and I would always beat myself up before I looked at a reason why a player made a mistake, if you know what I mean. So, so the reflective piece is massively important, but you've got to be careful, I think. And certainly, I would have loved to have had a mentor coach, because I perhaps could have got some of the stuff off my chest and talked a little bit about those things, rather than go to a dark place sometimes when you lose 2 or 3 games on the trot. And hey, touch wood, and thankfully I've been pretty successful. But like every coach, you end up under the bus a few times, and sort of swimming in deep water a few occasions, and you're trying to find a solution. So that reflective aspect can be very positive, but it can be a little bit negative as well.
Yeah, and it's a really good point as well, and it's something that a lot of our guests are resonating with and explaining, in terms of that reflection can be so powerful for us and so helpful, but also it's very important to find that midpoint of it and not to focus on the negatives all the time. And I think that's something our listeners can certainly relate to. I'm sure that situation, I can certainly relate to it as a coach and as a player, and as even a professional. I suppose you're when you do spend too much time on the negative side of it, it can have severe consequences on your high performance.
Well, it can, because you need to get back into the environment on the Monday morning, upbeat, positive, confident that you found the solutions. Very often my wife would say to me on a Sunday, if you've had a bit of a battering, or you're back in the man cave, because all I could think about in my head was, what am I going to do in the debrief? How am I going to present this aspect? Is it, am I bang on? Might go back through the video again, and just sort of overanalyze sometimes. And that's why I think having a mentor for every coach would be fantastic. Every leader would be fantastic. Sometimes you just need to talk about things and have an external sort of overview on it, and someone putting a little bit more perspective on it, really, because someone who's independent can give you that independent perspective. Whereas when you're the coach, you're so emotionally attached to this thing that you're either on top of the rooftops, or you're in the basement. So I think having someone you could talk to, probably, if I had my time over again, for all the great times I've had out of it, I might have tried to look to someone I could have bounced a few things off a little bit more often.
Yeah, and I think performance coaching is certainly something that the modern day coach and as we go forward, I think is a luxury that coaches have, but hopefully it will be something that we'll see channel down through the grassroots as well, because I think it's important that coaches at all level have that support. So and
I think that's where part of my role will be now in the Ospreys. I moved away from the actual high performance side of preparing the team as the performance director. Toby Booth, our new head coach, was fantastic, who I know you know, and I think you're going to have on one of the shows before too long. Toby Booth is running that side with his coaching team. I've helped to sort of recruit those guys, and I guess Toby's keen to talk to me about a few things during the course of the season, the ups and downs. So I think I'm the grey-haired fella, the old fella that can support and know exactly how that feels. So I'm looking forward to those chats, and hopefully, if I can help Toby in any way, that'll be fantastic for me and for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a gentleman, and also looking forward to having him on. So the next question then, Mike, for you, I suppose, given your elite successes over the years, and I suppose with it in mind that our listeners are listening today, with maybe some of our listeners are thinking about where do I start, or maybe where would be a good place to go to learn a little bit more, or expand my mind in terms of high performance. Is there any particular resources that you could recommend to our listeners?
Well, I think reaching out, there's 3 things for me there straight away, and that's network. I very often get young coaches contacting me and asking, can they, have a chat around coaching, and very often checking with me about once a month. And, I've enjoyed that. I learn from it. Hopefully they get something from it. So using a network, and as I say to coaches, my one coach said to me, I'm so disappointed my 5-year plan hasn't gone to, the way I wanted it to go. I was expecting to be at this level after 5 years. And I explained to him that very often in coaching, it's about your network. It's about knowing people. The reason I got the job at the Ospreys is not just because I've, been a coach for a long time and done reasonably well. It's because the guys who ran Swansea and got me there as a player and got me there as the coach are still involved in the Ospreys as directors now, all these years later. So obviously knowing the people, and they know those people knowing you and what you're about, really helps. For all the interviews and for all the CVs in the world, having a strong network, reaching out, not just for job opportunities, but for learning opportunities, education, the courses that you can do. Peter, I know you've been massively involved in a lot of further education. So, those things are massively important. So your network, your educational side of things, your engagement in those areas, I think, is massively important, really. And also the other one is the power of the universe. If you reach out and say things out loud, I say to my kids, and particularly my daughter, that if you say something out loud or say it to another person, and you put a belief behind it, somehow the universe can give you a little bit of a helping hand. I had a very bad injury, a very bad accident as a player. I played for the Wales B team. I'd been in a Welsh squad a few times, but never got capped. I got knocked off a ladder. I fractured my skull, broke my back, and I had to retire from playing rugby. And my father drove me down to see a specialist one day at the hospital, and I was advised to finish rugby. And my dad said, "Well, now you can't play rugby. What are you going to do?" I said, "Well, if I can't play for Wales, I'm going to coach Wales." And I said it out loud. Now, I was never the best coach in the world. I was never the worst coach in the world, but certainly there'd be better Welsh coaches than me. But I said it to the universe. I worked hard, tried to improve myself, and lo and behold, I had the opportunity to coach Wales. So I honestly believe that, your network, your education, and your goals, reaching out, telling people your goals, and putting those action behind the words, I think is a really powerful thing.
Yeah. And I think that's probably something we're slow to do as coaches, is to reach out to other people and ask for maybe advice or help, because maybe in some light we think, reaching out is a sign of weakness. But I think, having people to reach out to can only be a good thing for us in the long run.
Well, it is, and it's so much easier these days, Peter, with Zoom and WhatsApp and all the other platforms you can use. I mean, I have to tell you, I was probably guilty of not reaching out enough, and part of that was having some early success. Having won a few Welsh League titles, and as you say, Swansea were last for one in the league, hadn't beaten Clethley for 11 games. Suddenly we won 2 titles, beat the world champions and won the Welsh Cup. And I realised that I was way off where I wanted to be as a coach. I had a really good team, and I managed to create a vibe that probably allowed us to perform on a consistent basis. But, as a coach, I felt I needed to improve. But I also felt then that feeling of, well, hang on now, I just won a few leagues, I've won this, for me to go out sort of cap in hand and ask other people to tell me how I can improve as a coach, should I be doing that? So I questioned myself, really. And I think, looking back, that was a bit naive of me, really. I should have been very open and be prepared to be vulnerable. I think these days people are more, accept that being vulnerable is a human thing, and showing that you don't know everything is a strong thing, And probably back in my era, I came from a coal mining town and a steelworks where there was some tough blue collar sort of environment to go up in. Going out and asking people to tell you how you could improve wasn't really the done thing. So, that would be my advice to everyone. Really, sort of sit down and have a performance conversation. How could I get some feedback to see how I can improve in terms of my performance, and show that little bit of vulnerability. I think that's very engaging.
Yeah, really good point. And I'm struck by that big wall of books and CDs you have behind you, and I'm just wondering, are you a reader at all?
I am a reluctant reader. There's some of those from the past, I think. I got a little bit lazy on that front in my old age, but I got some photographs on the wall as well, mostly of the kids playing sport and the boys playing rugby. So try to balance it off. The practical side, and the academic side.
Very good, great. So I'm going to throw a bombshell at you now, Mike, as our final question, and I suppose really looking forward to your insights on this. What is the most important thing you have learned from your career to date?
Perseverance, without a doubt. Perseverance. Or, as I call it, bounce back ability. As I say, again, going back to my Swansea days, I think there was a great learning curve for me, because we had a lot of success and people patting you on the back, and then we got absolutely hammered by the next touring team that came over in 1994, I think it was, 1994, I think, and it was South Africa, and they went on to win the World Cup in 1995. Remember Nelson Mandela presenting Francois Pienaar with the World Cup in Loftus-Versfeld, and so that team under Kitch Christie was basically a professional team when we were all still amateurs. So we lived with them for a while. Then second half, they just pulled away and embarrassed us a little bit. And suddenly, from being a coach that everyone was patting you on the back, suddenly the knives were out and everyone wanted to sack you in the press. And we lost the next few games. Our confidence dipped, and I had to dig in deep. We eventually I had to change around a few of the guys in my team. I'd probably hang on to my team a little bit longer because we've been successful. I had to bring in some new guys and integrate them. Some of the laws had changed, which favoured some different styles of players. And I'd probably been a little bit loyal to too many of my other guys that had done so well for me. So it's a big learning curve for me. I had to bounce back. Thankfully, we bounced back and won the Welsh Cup that year, which was fantastic. And again, the first team I ever coached was my village team back up in the Welsh Valleys, and I did the coaching course after my injury at work. I did the coaching course that summer, came back from my level 2 Welsh Rugby Union coaching course with all my badges, and I thought I knew everything, and I started doing the training. And this club had been very successful anyway. It was what you call a second class club. It was a second tier club, and but they'd been very successful. And I started coaching them. We lost the first 4 matches, and the knives were out. And the committee gave me a yellow card, as we say in rugby. Give me a warning that if I kept losing, I'd be on my bike. And I went back to my players, and a lot of those guys I played underage with. And I said, listen, where am I going wrong here, guys? I've got a bit of a tap on the shoulder from the committee. I could be gone next week. So any sort of steers you can give me. So the guy said, well, look, we love the fact we're doing more skills work than ever before. We love the drills and the training. But, we don't feel as though we've done, we're doing enough fitness work. Because back in the old days, the guys would run all summer before the ball came out, And I was trying to turn this around and do more skills work and make them better players. But they just felt underprepared then on the fitness side, going back to the first pillar, the physical pillar. We were down on that. So I put extra work in every week. We scraped a win on the following Saturday. And then we went on to win every game and win the league. But, I certainly doubted myself after the first 4 games, and I had to bounce back and persevere, trying to learn some tough lessons. But the toughest lesson I learned was at the end of the season when I dropped one of the star players, and we won the cup. Sorry, that was the second season. We won the cup the second season. Dropped a star player, and I went in the club to celebrate afterwards, and his wife was working behind the bar, and she wouldn't serve me. And then I went to the local grocery market on the Monday, and she wouldn't serve me on the counter. She was working there part time, so it was time to leave my village because I couldn't eat and I couldn't drink in there. So it was time to leave. But I guess, you know, people are quick to remember the tough times, you know, and to jump on that, and for all the good things you do. So having that ability to dig in, persevere, bounce back, keep your self-belief when everything else around you is being eroded, I think, would be the biggest thing I've learned in high performance. And once things change, it can change so quickly. A bit like that first team I coached, that Blinder, my village team, we lost 4 games. And then suddenly we didn't lose another game. You know, and when we lost those 4, we looked a million miles away from winning the league. But things can change so quickly, and you just need that momentum, you know.
Yeah, fantastic point, and certainly something I'll be taking with me. I'm grateful for 2 things at the minute. I'm grateful for the fact that you've come on board today and given me the opportunity to talk with you. And I'm also grateful for the fact that I don't have a producer or a director, because I know they'd be screaming at me right now for the amount of time I've spent talking to you. So so there's loads of things there. But no, look, I suppose with all seriousness, I just want to thank you for coming on board today, Mike. I think it's been a massive insight into both yourself and what you're trying to do with Toby and the rest of the team in Ospreys. And I certainly will be watching Ospreys and keeping a keen eye on how things work out for you in the coming season and the coming year. So I wish you all the best with the Ospreys project. And again, sincerely just want to thank you on behalf of myself and our listeners for coming on board today and supporting what we're doing.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Thanks for asking me. And obviously, very best wishes to everyone. I hope everyone supports Temple Street. It's a fantastic cause, the foundation there, and to all the people who work there as well. You know, fantastic effort. So, well done, Peter.
Thanks, Mike, and we'll hopefully talk to you soon. So that's it for another session of High Performance Reflections. I hope everyone enjoyed it as much as I did. Like always, to access the videos, you can access them free of charge on our YouTube channel. Just search High Performance Reflections. That will bring you to our channel. And also, if you'd like to donate to our very worthy cause of Temple Street Children's University Hospital, you can do that through our GoFundMe page at GoFundMe. You can search, again, High Performance Reflections, or you can get the link directly on the GoFundMe page or the YouTube channel. So for now, all that's left to say is goodbye. I hope you enjoyed our session, and I'm looking forward to our next session. Take care, everyone.